Okay, so we're holding now by the fifth shir in trying to get to understand the Shittas Chabad. And the truth is that when I began giving the shiurim, I wasn't sure where to start, because be'etzem, the purpose of our avodah is dira b'tachtoinim. So I wasn't sure if I should first start with dira b'tachtoinim and go through the Ishtalshalos. And Bechlal, there was a Ishtalshalos in Chassidus. Every day brought a new Indian, and I wasn't sure which approach to take. The reason I decided the approach that we did take is because I felt that let's first establish Shittas Chabad, what it is. That is where, that's what the Yisoid of these Shiurim are. And once we do that, we can kind of go a step back and deal with the bigger picture. And that's what we did. So we've already explained in the past four Shiurim, we spent the time coming to the Hakara, coming to the realization, past five Shiurim, more than the sixth Shir. So the past 5 Shiurim, we've spent the time understanding that what is the Shit of Chabad. And the Shit of Chabad is one word. The Shit of Chabad is the Shit of Ispoinanus. That's the Shit. Why Ispoinanus? Because we need to change. Not only do we need to change with Maisa, not only do we need to do mitzvahs with our hands, not only do we need to do mitzvahs and to change the world, we need to change ourselves. And the only way to change yourself is to actually change. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe says that even though there's a major benefit in being 100% bottled to a tzaddik and having all the hashpah, everything come through the tzaddik, nevertheless, be'etzem, the Maisa mitzvahs can go higher with the tzaddik. Nevertheless, because we didn't change ourselves, so we're missing a part of dira b'tachtonim. And changing yourself is only when you actually change, not when somebody else is using what you do to take it where it needs to go. It's when your mind actually changes, when you see things differently. And therefore, that was the yisoid of the Alter Rebbe, why we need this spoinus. And in the last year, we explained that the Mendel Rebbe explains that in order to change, you need to really change. Convincing ourselves that we changed is not real. It's not real change. And therefore, we have to be extremely careful when it comes to spilus, when it comes to a focus on extreme emotion, on deep emotion, and or it's not really emotion. It's of losing ourselves, of trying to feel 100% what we're thinking, because over there, when it comes to feeling, we could fool ourselves sometimes, and therefore we could fool ourselves, or it could be misplaced, or whatever. We explained all the reasons, all the challenges last time with it. So therefore, the Mendel Rebbe focused. It said that it's for all Chassidim. Spoinus is not only for a select few, it's for all Chassidim, like the Alter Rebbe after Peterburg. But therefore, we have to start making an emphasis on insisting on feeling. Hagam, we want to also change our feelings, but we'll change our feelings automatic. By being misboinen, we'll change our feelings. How much that feeling is going to be revealed feeling is less important. The most important thing is that we really, really change. And real change, we can only be sure that it's real change. For most of us, we can only be sure that it's real change, unless a certain tzaddikim or certain beinanim. But most people can only be sure that they really changed when it's seichel based, when it's intellect based, not when it's emotion based. And therefore, it says the Mendel Rebbe that we need to focus dafka on seichel. Okay, this is what we did explain until now. And once we have that clear, that the shitta of Chabad is a zboinunus. And one time we were learning this through, and a Bach asked me, if a person is not misboinen, is he Chabad? So he says he following Shittas Chabad if he's not mispoinen. And we had an interesting discussion, which is going to be a little bit what we're going to discuss today. Now, be'etzem, now I had planned to go back, to start in the beginning, go through Ishtalshalos HaTorah, go through Ishtalshalos Pnimis HaTorah Be'ikir, and the Indian of Maisa HaMitzvahs, and Machloikus in Alter Rebbe and others in Maisa HaMitzvahs. Because it's Beis Tammuz this week, so I figured let's discuss a little bit let's jump a little bit ahead and discuss shlichus, miftzoyim. Where does that fit into Chabad? If you think about it, where does the mamash come in? What's Chabad? Shittas is boinanus. You think that the Chabad is avodas atfilah. Where does suddenly miftzoyim come in? Shlichus come in? So I thought it's appropriate the Frierdiker Rebbe becomes Rebbe and begins to almost fully in Russia, not mamash, there's mamorim and there's chassidim and there's, but to a larger extent, even in the Tzemach Tzedek and even when there was the issues with our scholar, to a large extent, the Mendel Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe sending people to be Moisei Nefesh for teaching children Aleph Beis. When did that fit into Chabad? How does that work? we see this even more so in Dor Shvi, where the Rebbe began to send shluchim, and did something change? So let's begin with actually trying to understand why l'chura, this is the polar opposite of Chabad. The yisoid of what we do today, of a lot of the avodah of today, is l'chura very different to what the Alter Rebbe began. Let's talk like this. During the Nesius of the Alter Rebbe, there was an uprising in France. There was a revolution in France, which Pashtus was based on the revolution in America, where the king was overthrown, and they wanted a regular, normal government. It took a few years until governments didn't work out, and there was internal politics, until there came an individual by the name of Napoleon, a general, and he made a coup. He took over from the government, he kicked the government out, and he himself became emperor. For all intents and purposes, he went back to the old system of king. But this Napoleon himself was an extremely interesting character. He was part of a new movement. He believed very strongly in what was at that time a very new movement, known as the Enlightenment. Now, the Enlightenment, we know in the Yiddish circles, in Russia, and all over in the Yiddish circles, the Enlightenment made a lot of tzoros for Frumei Yidden. The Enlightenment carries with it also a lot of minus. The first thing he did was emancipation. Emancipation means freedom. He said that there's no such thing that one person is better than the other. There's no such thing be'etzem as a king. There are people, he didn't believe in communism. He didn't believe that everybody is mamash equal, but you could work to become unequal. You could work to become better, but every single person be'etzem has to be free. If you want to understand a little bit, the shit of emancipation is the American Constitution is based a lot on every person has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every person has the right to be free. Be'etzem, every person has the right to be free. Meaning every person can do whatever they want. That is the shitta of emancipation. Every single person can do whatever they want. That's freedom. Freedom is doing whatever you want. But noisef to that, now part of that is what's called enlightenment, or fakert, or part of enlightenment is called emancipation, but enlightenment means not only can I do whatever I want. What is the most important tchuna of a person? It's his mind. And every single person has to be able to understand, not only can every person make their own decisions, but every person can establish the reality. L'mashal, that means it's up to the individual to understand, or the individual or collective, but it's up to us to understand life, to decide moral, to dig down and understand Olam Hazeh, to understand the world. So science, and the focus on science, and the focus on where we came from to understand the human intellect. So on the one hand, enlightenment is very good. Meaning, where can enlightenment be good? It means my neighbor doesn't hold of keeping Shabbos. I do hold of keeping Shabbos. Does my neighbor have a right to tell me you can't keep Shabbos? No, because my seichel is 100% correct. The problem is, can I tell my neighbor that you're wrong for not keeping Shabbos? Also not, because in the shitta of freedom, of liberty, of every single person to his own, on the individual is the human is the highest form, and therefore seichel is the highest thing, and therefore whatever is understood up seichel is what it is, and if it's not understood up seichel, then forget it. Then what are you following it for? So I can't tell that to the next person either. So on the one hand, enlightenment is a very good thing. It focuses on seichel. It makes people understand what they're doing. It makes people responsible for their actions. It allows for freedom. It allows for freedom. It allows for human expression. It allows for me to be different than you. On the other hand, what happens? Where can it go wrong? What happens if what I want to do doesn't make sense? It doesn't make sense to you. What happens if what I want to do doesn't make sense? Or what happens what I want to do is when I want to do something, it goes against what you consider moral. The big issue. When I want to do something, it goes against what you consider moral. Who's right? What can I do? So there are universal laws, right? Everybody understands that in any system, there's no such thing as 100%, yeah? Other than Torah. There's no such thing as 100%. So in any system, there's no such thing as I'm allowed to kill you because in my mind that makes sense. That's kamuvan, not acceptable. But once you dealt with the universal laws, don't kill, don't steal, whatever. Yeah? As long as I'm not causing damage to anybody else, as long as my shitta is not causing damage to anybody else, can I have my shitta? So, be'etzem, theoretically, yes. But if you're trying to build a society, miyusid 100% on seichel, so then you can try and shut out of society non-seichel. Which means that you could laugh at non-seichel, is one thing. You can also try and cause non-seichel to not be allowed to exist. Now, non-seichel could be hechef and seichel. Non-seichel could be lamata mea seichel. So lamata mitam v'das, things that are stupid. Say that you could cut that out. We don't suffer by cutting things that are lamata mitam v'das out of society. Lamayla mitam v'das is an issue. Okay. So the thing is that Napoleon, I'll give to you some examples. He had some fundamental challenges with what it says in the Torah. He didn't like certain things that it says in the Torah. So he made a Sanhedrin. He made a group of 71 Rabbonim. Most of them were frum. Most of them, or many of them were frum. To Napoleon, there's no such thing as reform has just as much on earth as reform didn't exist yet. But the Hakadomas to reform, the more modern, the more they had just as much an art to being considered Rav as the Orthodox rabbi, because seichel, every person, each his own. Every person can decide. Everybody can paskin however they want. So he made a Sanhedrin to answer some of his morality questions in Torah, and some of his challenges that he had. He wanted answers. He insisted on answers. And if he didn't like the answer, didn't make sense of his seichel, he could have brought in laws that would challenge Torah, because he could have told it that this. You understand? There's freedom, there's emancipation. America is based on emancipation. Emancipation is freedom. Each do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody else. Napoleon insisted on this other concept. Not only on emancipation, he insisted on enlightenment, and anything that went b'stira to enlightenment was in danger at the time. Okay. Napoleon, we're not learning our world history. Napoleon goes to battle and he wins. He conquers the entire Europe. France on one end of Europe. He conquers the entire Europe all the way to Russia. And he makes a mistake, the same mistake the Germans made twice. He makes a mistake and he attacks Russia. Russia is a country that's so big that their strategy was almost the same in every single war. Keep it going until winter, and by the time it's winter, the enemies they freeze. They can't manage. And they attack out that shitta. The Russians, as they would retreat, they would burn all the houses. They'd burn all the villages. They'd burn everything in their sight, so that there was nowhere. By the time it came winter, the enemy would have nowhere to sleep. This was the shitta, the systematic shitta. And Napoleon starts a war with Russia. First, now, there's a machloikus between Talmidei HaMagid, who should win the war? Why is it Negeya? They say, why is it Negeya? Because they can achieve things. Like we'll see. They can do things. They can do tremendous things. The Talmidei HaMagid are going to win or lose the war. The Tsar can do what he wants, and Napoleon can do what he wants. At the end of the day, so there's a machloikus. Who should win the war? Who's better? The Alter Rebbe was on the side of the Tsar. Mendel Meriminov was on the side of Napoleon. Why? Let's first discuss Mendel Miriminov. It wasn't only Mendel. As a Mendel, it was the Choyze. It was the Kozhnitzer Magid. What happened was like this. Mendel Miriminov held that Napoleon should win because Mendel Miriminov says like this. I'm just thinking, I'd like to get, we're going to get to the Mendel Miriminov in a minute. I just need to explain like this. There's a letter from the Alter Rebbe to the Moshe Meisels. The Moshe Meisels is the spy that the Alter Rebbe sent to infiltrate into Napoleon's legions. So Mamash became an advisor, became an interpreter for Napoleon, so he could spy and help the Tsar. There's a letter from the Alter Rebbe to him explaining that the reason why I want the Tsar to win is because even though I know that's going to be better for Napoleon, with Napoleon's going to be better Beruchnius, but it's going to be worse Begashmius. I should mention that this letter, there's a big suffix on the validity on the letter. Is the letter correct or incorrect? Because it's the letter from the Mittler Rebbe, similar to others, although written very different. This letter that's officially from the Alter Rebbe has this very similar lashon to the Mittler Rebbe. It could be that somebody copied the Mittler Rebbe's letter explaining the Alter Rebbe's shitta, but it could be that somebody copied the letter of the Alter Rebbe, of the Mittler Rebbe, and by mistake it got confused as if the Alter Rebbe had written it actually to the Moshe Meisels. If you look in the new edition of the Igris, of the Alter Rebbe's Igris, so Rebbe 11 brings over there in the Ha'aris, because Bishua Munchen, all of us Shalom, has a whole write-up about this, why the letter might be a mistake, and you'll see in the Igris he's mitzayin that it might be a mistake. Whatever the case is, whether or not the letter is true, real or not, whatever the case is, the shitta we know that the Alter Rebbe held that it's good that Napoleon will be better begashmius. We know the Alter Rebbe held Napoleon will be better begashmius, but the Yidden are going to be worse off beruchnius. Now we're going to get back to and we're going to deal with it. Let's talk now with Mendel Miriminov. He came from an entirely different approach. He wanted Napoleon to win, but he came from an entirely different approach. He said that we could create. There are enough tzaddikim today in that generation that they can make it be Milchemes Goygo Mogig. They can turn this battle into Milchemes Goygo Mogig. And if Napoleon wins, so it will be Mogig winning over Goyg, and then Mashiach will come. So the Mendel says, Mashiach. We are now going to make Mashiach come. That's it. And he brought with him into this opinion the Kozhnitzer Magid and the Choyze Milublin. It seems that he began talking about this already by Pesach. That's what it seems. Hagam, the war hadn't started yet by Pesach. But it seems that he already started by Pesach, by when they did the matzahs on Erev Pesach, when they made the matzahs, he sang Hallow. And it seems that he felt then that they're going to win after that happened. And but besides that, together with Mendel, he spoke a lot about it. And the three of them decided that they're going to that this is it. This should be Goygo Mogig. Mashiach should come. This is it. They're gonna achieve it. And Mendel Miriminov had a Talmud by the name of Rabbi Tzvi Meropshitz, the Heilige Ropshitzer. It was a Talmud. It was a very close Talmud of Mendel, and he disagreed. He was already Rebbe in Ropshitz at the time, but he disagreed with Mendel. Ledai Toi, he told Mendel that it's true that this could be Milchemes Goygo Mogig, Mashiach could come, but hundreds of thousands of Yidden are going to be killed. If you're going to insist on it, hundreds of thousands of Yidden are going to be killed before the end of the war. And then Mendel says, Seder will all suffer, but Mashiach's going to come. The Heilige Ropshitzer said, no, not on my watch. Not on my watch. I have an achrayus to the Yidden that are here now. I don't want them to die. Shum oifen not. It doesn't matter what bigger picture you're going to achieve, but shum oifen not. The story itself, there's so much to unpack in this story. But we're discussing it now for a specific purpose. So let's. So, and now Yom Kippur. This is already after the story of Shofar, which we'll get back to in a second. But Yom Kippur, just to make it Davar Shalom, Yom Kippur, Mendel Meriminov told the Rabshitzer. Rabshitzer was about Tefillah for Musaf Yom Kippur, and he told him he should be mechaven by Yom Kippur, should be mechaven that Napoleon should win. And the Rabshitzer was mechaven that the Tsar should win. And Mendel Meriminov got very upset with him, and the Mendel Meriminov and he left. The Rabshitzer left, and we'll see soon. He came back a couple of months later. We'll see soon. But so this is the machlokas. Now this was already a very, very serious machlokas, because over here, in Mendel Meriminov, the Tarnosoi, any person that is stopping, that is making sure that the Tsar wins, is stopping Mashiach. It's not only he's stopping something he's mamish stopping Mashiach. So now the Mendel Meriminov works to do whatever it takes to push this through. The Alter Rebbe saw this extremely differently, obviously. It doesn't say anywhere that the Alter Rebbe saw this as Milchemes Gog Magog at all. As far as the Alter Rebbe is concerned, the Alter Rebbe says very clearly that if Napoleon wins, Napoleon is going to emancipate all the Yidden. There's not going to be restrictions where Yidden can live. There's not going to be restrictions where Yidden can have parnasa. There's not going to be restrictions. There's going to be no restrictions on the Yidden. Everything from the Yidden is going to be tremendous. The problem is that look what's going to happen. The reality is, look what's going on today. Look at the intermarriage that's going on today. Says the Alter Rebbe that it's going to be so hard to keep Torah mitzvahs. Now there's a difference between then and today, because then it was about enlightenment. It was about insisting on enlightenment. It was insisting that everybody do only the rational. If you don't, then. So the shaila is how much. The shaila at the time was how much freedom should you actually have? If emancipation is a stira, if freedom, personal freedom is a stira to rationality, to enlightenment, to not being able to anything you don't understand shouldn't exist. Klal or klal. So how much of it is how much can they work together? How much can they not work together? It was worse in America. It was worse. It was a challenge. But said the Alter Rebbe that we can't. It's going to be easier. It's a different machlokas. You understand? The Mendel Meriminov sees it as Milchemes Gog Magog, and there's a machlokas. The Mendel Meriminov and the Rabshitzer. The Rabshitzer says, I have responsibility for my Yidden here and now. And therefore, if they're going to be killed, then my responsibility is that they should live and have good lives. Mendel Meriminov, who by the way was his inyan was parnasa for Yidden, but Mendel Meriminov sees it the other way. And he says, let there be hundreds of thousands of deaths. He said, let us walk in blood till our thighs, I think he says, yeah? Let us walk till our thighs in blood. If it's going to ois matter in Mashiach, if it's going to cause Mashiach to come, then that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to do it. Alter Rebbe says, Alter Rebbe is not addressing that at all. Alter Rebbe says, Alter Rebbe is choylek. Now again, whether or not the letter of the Alter Rebbe is the correct letter, this is the Alter Rebbe's shitta. We know this from the Mittler Rebbe. We know this. That says, the Mittler Rebbe writes this. The shitta says the Alter Rebbe that it could be that it's going to be better for the Yidden Begashmis. Could very well be. But Beruchnis is going to be a disaster. In other words, let's boil down this machlokas. In other words, says the Alter Rebbe, why is the Alter Rebbe against dealing with against France, against Napoleon? Says the Alter Rebbe, don't work to elevate Olam Hazeh. Don't work legamri to elevate Olam Hazeh. Not at all. But there's a limit. To go to France, to go to enlightenment, to go to a place where people are only interrational, and that's the highlight. And to try and elevate that place or to try and live in such a place, it's too risky. Can't do it. Don't take the risk. We'll conclude this part And then we will, we'll move on in the next year. So far, where we're holding so far is, it seems that the Alter Rebbe did not agree with Shlichus. Shlichus is a Yiddish area. Shlichus is an area where people are maybe more bigger believers. But as a matter of klal, to go out and to be mevarer any place, this is lav dafka. Let's just conclude from the Mendel, Mendel Beniminov. We all know that it's a famous that the Alter Rebbe knew that the Rabbi knew, the Talmidei Amagid knew that whoever's going to blow shofar first on Rosh Hashanah is going to that's who's going to have the psak. Psak is going to come out according to them. So Be'etzem Shamayim, they're going to decide. The Eibush is going to decide based on the Talmidei Amagid in this world, and whoever's going to blow shofar first. Everybody rushed through davening. Now, the Rebbe blew shofar before davening, and therefore, the Rebbe won the psak. Now, Rabbi Mendel didn't give up, like I told you. Yom Kippur, he told the Rabbi to be mechaven certain kavanas, that the Rabbi wasn't mechaven, because he didn't agree with the Mendel Mendel. Napoleon, the Rebbe is nostalgic. Napoleon loses the war. And Mendel Mendel doesn't give up. He says, we have to do it anyway. Hagam, Napoleon lost. So Hagam wasn't going to Gomogig. We're going to ois matter. And there are certain yichudim that people could say, that people could do, could be done, that can do it. The Ramchal, for example. Ramchal was somebody that lived there before the Alter Rebbe, time of Baal Shem Tov. A little bit later than Baal Shem Tov, around the same time. But Ramchal had a kvutz when he was younger. He had a kvutz. He was stalik very young, but when he was much younger, he had a kvutz of Talmidim, and they would do certain yichudim. They were also trying to bring Mashiach. We're saying certain yichudim, but that's why lechatchila. So he changed what he was doing. He changed his approach based on what his Rebbe is. But I forgot which one of the Kabbalim he was makabel from. He had to change it. He had to give up all the svarim that he wrote because this was his original approach. But anyway, so the Mendel Meriminov decides that they're going to say that they're going to do it anyway, and they're going to do it by hakofis. The Mendel Meriminov, the Kozhnitzer Magid, and the Choyze Melublin by hakofis are go on Shmini Atzeres. I think Shmini Atzeres are going to be mechaven certain kavanas and say, I think, certain yichudim as well, and that's going to do it. It's a very unique time. Hakaf is a very, very special time. It's a time where it's a real zman mesugel, and if they put the two together, if they put the yichudim at that time, okay. Erev Sukkos, the Kozhnitzer Magid is nostalgic. And Mendel Meriminov and the Choyze decide they're going to go ahead with it anyway. Each in their own town, by the way. But they're going to try and continue. Agam, they're not three anymore. They're going to go ahead with it anyway. Erev Simchas Torah, it's a Shayne Rabbe, Shmini Atzeres. The Choyze sits down to prepare himself for Hakofis, prepare what he needs to do to be at the state of by Hakofis being able to be mechaven the kavanah, say the yichudim. And he told his wife to stay in the room to watch him because when a person goes to the higher spheres, the higher realms, so if there's somebody else, if there's somebody Gashmi that's in the room with them at the time, just like a Rabbi would hold them to a handkerchief, there's something physical at the time, so it doesn't allow the people, the malachim in the higher oilimus to have any control of the person in this oilam. So, it keeps the person here, keeps the person in this world. So he told his wife to stay in the room with him, to watch him. And he sat and went into the higher oilimus. And there was a knock on the door. So for a second, his wife left just to open the door. And she came back, and she found the Choyze 50 meters. He wasn't sitting anymore. He wasn't by his place. And the window was open. And she ran outside, and they found the chayze 50 meters away from his house. Very far, relatively. And he became paralyzed. He survived, but he became paralyzed from then until his istalkus a couple of months later. And now we're left with Mendel himself. The Mendel made him of himself. And Mendel said he's not giving up. He's going to do it himself. He praved hakafis from Shmini Atzeres by night, every single night until the first night of Hanukkah. He praved with a minion of Talmidim, with a minion of Chassidim, so it's Mustama people that were shayiched it. He praved every single night from Shmini Atzeres through to Hanukkah. On the first night of Hanukkah, when he wasn't able to, when Mashiach didn't come, he wasn't able to do it, so he said, "Sure, now it's too late. Hanukkah is the end, now it's too late." And that was it. He became very sick a little bit later. Lag BaOmer was extremely sick. And the Rabshitzer heard that his Rebbe is sick, he was not well, so he came. Remember, he hadn't been there since Yom Kippur. After Yom Kippur, he left because the Mendel was very upset with him, and he came. And he was crying. He told the Rabshit, he told the Mendel Merimanov, he told the Mendel, Rebbe will the Leben Mashiach. The Mendel told him, Grine, wird rauswachsen von deinem Beckelach. Your cheeks are going to grow green. Grass is going to grow out of your cheeks. Now, you're going to decompose before Mashiach is going to come. Similar to what Rabbi Akiva said. Use the lashon of Rabbi Akiva. In other words, if it's he's not coming out for a while. This was like BaOmer, and they prepared for Yitzias Neshama. The Rabshitzer was crying so much. It says in Sfarim that crying is not good, doesn't help. It's difficult for the Neshama to leave a body when the family members or Kroivim are crying over it. It's very not good. The Neshama doesn't like it, and it's very good to the Neshama. And Mendel he was a goisus. He was lying in Gesisa as long as the Neshama couldn't leave, as long as the Rabshitzer was there. Crying, he couldn't leave. And that night, though, he's Oile Mendel L'Omer, Oile Yutes Ear, the Rabshitzer Pashat, he had no koyach begashmis anymore, and he stopped crying. And at that moment, the Mendel was nostalgic. So that's the end of that part. Just I wanted to give a Dover Shalom. Schusay Yovin Aleinu. And Mitzvah Hashem, next Shir, we'll continue discussing this Likud of the Alter Rebbe, and what changed, what Likud changed.